Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pink Nest. I'm having Lindsay here with me all the way from Calgary. I love this. Distance just doesn't mean anything, does it?
Yeah. No.
She's a leadership and people strategist, fractional HR partner, and host of Female Founder Unplugged. One of the things that you've mentioned in your description is really something that I found really important, that you've been speaking more lately about how menopause intersects with leadership. And this is definitely something that we're going to touch in our discussion as well. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And it is really cool to be talking to each other from different sides of the world. I love it.
Me too. All right. We always start at the beginning, childhood. So how was your childhood like? And what kind of girl was Lindsay when you grew up? This is just a starter.
No, I love that question. So I grew up in small town Alberta, about half an hour from the American border. And I grew up in a town that was pretty idyllic, right? Lots of kids, lots of freedom, come home when the streetlights are on. And
same. I have to stop you. This is great because I'm having this discussion with people all over the world and we all have the same sign. Street lights on, we got to go home.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the universal sign that it's time to go home at night. Right. And here in Canada that could be like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night in the summer. I mean, we have light until quite late here, but I grew up in a place where I felt very safe. But I also grew up in a place where I didn't fit in because there was a dominant religion in this small town, and I was not a part of that religion. My dad was a mounted policeman. We moved, quite a bit. And so I really did experience that space where I was not the same. I was 5'9" when I was about 12 years old. So I grew very quickly. I started to menstruate very early. And that did not fit the norm, which was small, tiny, sweet girls. And so as much as we were safe and we had freedom, I wasn't the same as everyone else. And that was tricky. It was really tricky.
And how did your life path got you into the HR and leadership? Was it something that just growing up came to be, or is it really like a deliberate path?
Yeah. No, it wasn't necessarily deliberate in the beginning. I have a political science and a history degree, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer and go into politics. And that was something that I was interested in at an early age. I love walking in a place where I know that people have been walking for hundreds or thousands of years. I want to know the story. I'm just enchanted by that. And so that was my passion. That's what I went to university for. And I love reading stories. But I do think that to some degree that led to my career in HR and leadership, which is that I genuinely care about people. I want to know their story. I want to understand what makes them tick. Why? I want to get under the hood with what's going on for them. And certainly, as a historian, that was key. But now as an HR professional and someone who works daily in leadership and executive development, I want to understand what's making people show up the way they do.
And what do you think about workplaces today and in the past? You work really a lot, obviously, when you're working in HR in workplaces. And this is a topic that I'm talking a lot about. So tell me a little bit your perspective on this.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the working world for 30 years, right? I hate to say that. That sounds like a lot. I'm not that old. But I've been in the workplace for a long time. And the truth is it has shifted, and COVID accelerated the shift. And what we have is we have a multi-generational workplace. We still have people that we would consider to be from the baby boomer generation. These are people born after the Second World War, if you can believe it. And then we have people that are born just prior to COVID. We have people that are born 2002, 2006. Those are my kids. I have kids that age.
Mm,
And so what we have in the workplace is a really diverse set of people with an incredibly diverse set of values. And that is what makes it really challenging because our young people today are not lazy. They are motivated by very different things and they have a very different set of values. And that makes our workplaces really dynamic because the kids today, digital natives, they don't know the world before Wi-Fi. Not even
mm,
before the internet, but before Wi-Fi, right?
mm,
Like they have always been connected with a supercomputer in their hand. And yet we have people in the workplace that remember growing up without a television, right?
mm,
My mom grew up, they didn't have a TV until she was an older child. So
mm,
I think that's what we have to be really cautious and cognizant about. And then how we help these people connect so they can collaborate in our workplace in a way that's really effective. Because magic happens when we do that. But it can be very, very challenging as a leader and as someone, in particular that works with those most senior leaders to do that.
mm. It is challenging, but as you've mentioned, it's also rewarding because I think that
Yeah,
there is a mutual learning curve.
100%.
And absolutely, once the things click, I think it can be a really beneficial and very enriching
Yes.
environment as well.
It can be. It
Uh,
absolutely can be. And I think that's what we have to focus on is there's so much more in common than there is that makes us different. And we just need to find the right way and the right language to connect. And we need to recognize the differences and actually leverage them as opportunities.
Absolutely. One of your focuses of your work has been female founders and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. What made you choose to focus your work there? And I mean, being a female founder myself, I
Yeah.
know it is a challenging and a very, very rocky landscape.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. I mean, what was important to me is I ended up I left my last corporate job because I worked for a very toxic boss. And I worked in a very woman dominated environment. HR is dominated by females, although I would argue that a lot of the men end up in the most senior leadership roles. That's a different podcast episode. But I ended up working for someone who was very toxic and I left the organization. I quit in the middle of a meeting with her and I was really, really sick physically, emotionally, spiritually when I left. I was completely drained. And when I left, what I could really feel in my heart and soul is that I didn't want anyone else to work for a toxic leader like that. Like I was absolutely driven by that. And when I looked around as I started my own practice, I recognized that I was in the majority. So many women had left the workplace and started their own business because they worked for really terrible bosses, just
Mm,
absolutely hideous people in work environments that were very, very destructive. And I thought, this can't happen. These women need a great example as they start and lead and grow their businesses. They need to feel grounded and confident in leadership that is really authentic. And a lot of leadership development out there is still very male centric. It is
mm,
based on a male norm of leadership. We lead differently. We lead with our heart. We lead with vulnerability. And we need to be able to be that so that we can really be ourselves in our businesses and our leadership. And so that is why I decided to focus on female founders. And the truth is, we just don't get the resources. We don't get the funding. We don't get the
mm,
support. We don't get the mentorship. And I thought, you know what? This is a space where I can make a real difference.
mm. There is one peculiar thing that can potentially happen with female founders. So they build the teams, or we build the teams and cultures that inadvertently mirror the very burnout they escape from with employment they want to avoid. Why
Yep.
do you think that this happens? And I've been seeing this quite a lot. It's not a lonely case, and it's happening really
Yep.
a lot more often than it should. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I think that we are hustling for our self worth. I think that that is an internal landscape issue. And I'm going to use the coach language. I'm going to call it the saboteur. The saboteur is that critical inner voice that that shitty conversation in our own head that tells us that we are not good enough, we are not smart enough, we won't be successful, we're not making enough money, we're not moving forward fast enough, the growth isn't happening. And that for some reason, we are the problem. And so
Mm,
what we do is we double down on what we do best, which is to work harder, to micromanage, and to really channel all our efforts into the outputs. And as our business grows and it feels weirder and crazier and bigger and more out of control, we double down again. So my personal philosophy is that is an internal landscape issue. And that's where being a coach, I work really closely with my clients on what is going on there. What are they experiencing? What are the difficult and challenging emotions? And often it's, I don't
mm,
know how to do this. I feel really uncomfortable. This feels like a big stretch for me. I'm not sure I can do this. Everyone in my life has told me, that I might not be good enough.
mm.
Right. And so I really believe that as much as we work hard to grow our business, it's our personal growth that makes the most impact as we scale.
Mm. But it's not necessarily only with the job or with the entrepreneurial mindset that it's like the background of this. I think it's even cultural, and it's also the
Some of it.
way just women are raised, basically, because if you would be a man entrepreneur, everybody would say, yeah, of course, just grind your way up and it's
Yeah.
completely normal and you're the best and you're strong and you're blah
Yeah.
blah. But if you say this for a woman, it's like, oh, I don't know. So I think that there is a lot of background in it that we might not even think about it in a way like it.
100%. 100%.
Mm,
And let's not forget the emotional load that many women carry. We are the caregivers. Now, I'm a mother of 4, I'm a grandmother of 2, right? So, I always said I started my full-time job after 5 because my first job was being a mom. Now I'm a grandma.
mm,
Right? But even if you're not married and have children, you still carry a great deal of emotional load for your family. Perhaps you have aging parents or you have friends that require your support. I think the other part of it too, this is where the perimenopause piece fits in. So I turned 50 this year. Me- Perimenopause symptoms start often in your mid 30s. Let's not forget that is these are all happening concurrently also in a world that is truly structured for men to be successful, not women.
mm,
And whether you think that that's on purpose or not, that's for you to decide. But the
mm,
truth is, there are often spaces where we are deeply disadvantaged. Again, when it comes to seeking venture capital, women get such a small proportion of that, even though women have a higher rate of repayment. We don't default on our loans. I mean, we're a safe bet. So there's a number of structural issues. And then I think we are often left hustling for our self-worth. And that's a Brene Brown quote. But we feel like we have to prove and we have to work harder to do it. And that
mm.
that leaves us feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and is a straight line to burnout.
You've been speaking more about how menopause intersects with leadership. And I
Yeah.
think that this is a conversation many women are really craving, but are afraid to have. And it's quite similar to everything else related, for example, in things that really I'm working on, for example, mental health, well-being,
Yeah.
neurodiversity. So these are all topics that are still very much hush hush and
Yes.
no in corporate world, but also
Yes.
elsewhere. What made you decide to bring this into your work? And what's the feedback like? I'm assuming that
Yeah.
it's similar to what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so first of all, what made me bring this into my work? My own experience with perimenopause. So about 2 years ago, I was just coming off a big project, big deliverable for a client, had been working for several months, culminating in the delivery of this leadership and executive development program, finished it all up and basically collapsed. Right? Exhausted to the point where I could barely get out of bed. I had a myriad of symptoms. The most tricky symptom I had, my eyeballs hurt. Like I couldn't look at a computer screen for very long. And I'm not just talking about dry eyes, because that happens here in Calgary. Like I wanted to pull my eyeballs out. They were so painful. Right. And then all the other pieces that so many of us have experienced, the sleeplessness, the incredible brain fog. I'm not sure I should have been driving a car. right? I think I
Sounds
technically was in
familiar. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, there's, nearly 100 symptoms for perimenopause and they're so varied. I went to my doctor. I said, I don't understand. She said, I don't know. Maybe you have chronic fatigue syndrome. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's perimenopause. And I left the doctor's office. I got back to my car before I started to cry. And then I went on my own journey to try and find a practitioner to help me. And this is in Canada. We have a wonderful healthcare system here, but it's not without its flaws.
Mm.
Um, and it was very, very impactful to my business, right? I'm interacting with my clients every single day, and they love working with me. So when I can't show up as my full self, I am not delivering for them, and I take my role very seriously. So I spent the summer, that was, June to about September, where I really struggled physically. I couldn't get out of bed. I struggled to work, even a half day. I'm not sure I converted a lot to long-term memory that summer. Like there's things that just don't exist for me. And I recognized that, a lot of women are starting businesses when they're in their 40s.
Mm.
And so this perimenopause piece is absolutely riding shotgun as we start our business. And it is impactful in terms of how we do business. It is impactful in terms of the way we show up, the way we can lead, and also our ability to grow and be successful in the way we want. And so, yeah, I decided I'm going to talk about it. Our
Mm.
mothers, they didn't talk, oh, no, it wasn't a thing. I'm not doing that. We all go through it. If you survive long enough, you are going to have perimenopause. It's that simple.
Mm. Mm.
So we might as well have a conversation. And especially as entrepreneurs, we need to talk it through because it shows up and it impacts our ability to grow our business. And that is a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing and it's impacting every single woman out there. This
Yes,
is also something, and it's going to affect the performance, the identity, the confidence,
exactly.
everything, and not just in
Everything.
mild ways and in really profound ways.
Yeah.
And it's similar to burnout in ways that it's so different for each woman. There is no
Yes.
single thing to say, okay, you have 10 things, you have perimenopause. It's not like this. It's really varies from, you can have symptoms that are not in any book yet.
Right?
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important.
It is. And it's not until you start having conversations with your friends, with your mother, with your sister, with your cousins, that you start to recognize that some of these things are connected. Oh, wait a minute. You mean the fact that my back is itchy every night is a perimenopause symptom? Oh, you mean that my shoulder's been sore? I just thought it was a tennis injury. Like
Mm.
connecting these together is so challenging. And it is such a revelation when you recognize what it is and that there are absolutely ways to treat it. And whether you decide to go a wholly natural route or you decide to take HRT or you decide to try something new, honestly, but it doesn't fix it. I mean, my hormones, I just went and saw my professional yesterday. My estrogen levels all over the map. Well, no wonder I am struggling in the
Mm.
last few months, not feeling like myself. Well, my estrogen level is just on a roller coaster. Okay.
Yeah, but I read about this. I just read an article a few weeks ago about, because usually what a GP will do, like a doctor will do, is first they will do some blood tests, right? And
Okay.
these are so irrelevant because your hormones switch every few minutes, and this is based on your thoughts, so many things impact your hormones. It's impossible to diagnose anything with your blood level. I mean, your hormonal level in your blood. It's impossible, and it's completely irrelevant. So they should, if a person goes to see a doctor for perimenopause, there are other ways to actually diagnose it or to test
100%.
it or try it, and don't rely on the hormonal level. Because I've had the same situation. It's like, yeah, but they're fine. Yeah, maybe they're now.
Yeah. I think you gotta find a practitioner that actually has the ability, first and foremost, to listen very carefully and be able to help you connect some of the dots. Again, they call it a constellation of symptoms because it's like stars in the sky. They're all, when we look up and we want to see the Big Dipper, we actually have to imagine the lines. It's the same concept with all of these different symptoms. I think what has been interesting for me, seeing the same practitioner that focuses on perimenopause and menopause, is that over the course of 2 years, we have been able to see a history through some of the blood tests, but that's not the only piece we use. It's just one piece in a big puzzle in terms of our conversation, in terms of how I'm feeling, in terms of any reactions to anything that we're using or taking or I'm doing. Some of it has been about diet. Some of it has been about exercise. Some of it has been about HRT. I don't have progesterone. My body no longer produces it. You cannot live without progesterone if you are female. So I've had to replace that. There is only really one option when your body doesn't make it anymore. And so it's really about finding someone who can connect those dots and help you see what is the next step forward, give you the right options, because you gotta have choice. I think that's the other key here.
Yeah, and also one of the things that's super important, don't dismiss a symptom just because you think nobody's going to take it seriously. If your doctor is not the right one, just find another one, because you have to be starting taking seriously, because hormones, they just rule our bodies and mind. This is like, they are the core of our everything, behavior, memory, function. I mean, really, cognitive memory, everything is so connected to hormones. And it's, not just the ones that are for our reproductive hormonal levels. It's also, I don't know, thyroid hormones, everything. They're super important, and people are not paying enough attention to it, for sure. So if you don't get listen to it with your doctor, find another one, go knock another door. It's super important, really.
And I want to recognize, here in Canada and perhaps where you are, we have a lot of options, and that there are women in this world who don't have a lot of options, right? They are not as privileged as we are. Read, look on the internet, do your research, talk to your friends, right? And educate yourself to the best of your ability about what is happening in your body. Because to your point, no doctor is going to be able to understand, even if you have a really well-educated female one like I do. She doesn't live in my body, and we talk about that, right? So you have to be able to understand what is happening in your own internal world. And think about things like diet, exercise, sleep, stress,
stress,
and how to manage all of that. Those are all functions of how our body is going to operate. And I recognize that sometimes there's things that are out of our control. But what is in our control is we can educate ourselves. That is absolutely foundational to having a perimenopause journey that you can actually feel like you can have some impact on.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to touch before we wrap up are the identity shifts. They're a huge theme in your work. And I think women's sense of self is deeply tied to their business, to the role, family and motherhood, and like
all of it.
Everything is super connected. What does the work of rebuilding that identity look like? This is something I found really interesting in your description.
And I'll tell you that, a lot of this has been a very personal journey for me, right? Working in an organization where I'd been for 10 years, I thought I was going to have a long career, leaving, literally quitting my job in the middle of a meeting, leaving, and then having to completely reconnect with, who am I? Right? I was in such a state as I left that toxic work environment. So this work has been deeply personal for me. And I think, again, what is absolutely key in the success of our business is how we can actually understand at our core who we are. So that starts with things like, what do we care about the most? Those are our values. And what are the things that we do every day? What are the behaviors that make those values real for us? How do we show up in a way that actually brings that value to life? What are the boundaries that we create, and how do we articulate those so that others know that that's important to us? And then, of course, how do we bring those values to our business? So if it is a value like family, for many of us, family is a core value. Well, family might mean that I spend time. I do important activities. I am there for the people in my family. I'm not just physically, but I am there emotionally when they need me. Well, how does that show up in the way I build my business? Right? We have to reflect on that. And I think that is really important. And we need to think about things like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I meant to accomplish on this planet? Why am I and that relates directly to why am I doing this business? Why am I putting all my time, money, and effort into this damn thing? Right? We really need to think deeply about that because that reflects on how we're going to show up in our business and lead. And we don't often think about ourselves as leaders. We think about ourselves as entrepreneurs and founders and business owners, but we're a leader first. And that is a really key identity shift is who am I? How do I lead? Not does how we've lots of examples, probably some bad, probably some good. How do I lead? What is authentic for me? And that is a big question and it requires deep work.
Super important one as well.
Yes, it is. It is.
It really is, yeah. And it's interesting that you've mentioned before that most of the female founders actually found themselves on entrepreneurial side very late, actually in 40s, 45, even 50s, and not much earlier. Yeah, it's really interesting perspective as well. I find that at least interesting.
It is like a lot of us don't start our businesses until after we've actually had very successful corporate careers. And we decide for one reason or another that we want to take our skills and experience and we're going to go make money for ourselves. We're not going to make money for shareholders any longer, right? We're going to make money for me and I'm going to have the impact I want to have. And that is really foundational. And on those days when it's really tough, when it's really hard, when it feels like a slog, it's important to have that articulated so we can go right back to that. What am I doing? Oh, right. This is why I am doing this business, even though it's really one of the hardest things I've ever done because I have impact to make in the world. Okay, now I can move forward.
And having said all that, as we're speaking now, I think it's even more wild to think about that we don't get the funding because one would think that a person that's 45 years old, has 20 years of experience in their career would be like money. I mean, you should throw money at her and not give it to 20-year-old entrepreneurs. It's even more wild. I mean, nothing against them as well, but still one would think that this is a leverage that everybody would be jumping at. Like this person knows what she's doing, but it's not, it's completely the opposite. What makes it even more wild, doesn't it?
It does. And what I'm noticing, I mean, here in Canada in particular, but around the world, is that there is more and more money that is being earmarked specifically for female entrepreneurs because of exactly that. The experience, the education, the expertise, the absolute unequivocal knowledge and poise and direction, the drive that women bring to their businesses. And that more and more venture capital is starting to recognize that this is actually an incredible place to invest our money, not some tech bro with the newest gadget or process. Like, and that's cool too, right? There's been lots of incredible discoveries made that way, but actually female entrepreneurs are an excellent place to invest.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
All right, wrapping up, for a female founder who's listening right now, who's holding it all together on the outside, but quietly running on empty, what would you most want her to hear from you today?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that because that's exactly who I love to speak to and I love to work with. And I would say to her, first of all, you're okay. I know that it's tough and you have everything you need to actually make this happen. And what I want you to do, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, I want you to pause and I want you to rest. Because I think we treat rest as some kind of prize. And in fact, I think we get real close to burnout because we don't rest enough. And even if that means you take 10 minutes and go for a walk, I want you to pause and I want you to rest and I want you to reset. And I want you to remember, you've got this and you can do this.
And let's not forget to mention that one of the best ideas usually come out from this kind of resting periods as well.
100%. Take a beat. Take a beat, reset, recenter, reconnect to what's really important for you. What are you doing? What's the impact you're going to have? Okay. Take 3 deep breaths and now get back to it.
Totally agree. Lindsay, thank you so much for being my guest. I think it was a super impactful conversation. I really enjoyed it, and time just flew.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Wishing you all the best in your journey.
Thank you for having me. This has been a great day.
Thank you.